Let's begin with a question most people never stop to ask themselves. How much greatness have you missed because you refused to listen? The principle of tolerance is simple, but it is not easy. It is the ability to remain open. Open to ideas that challenge you. Open to people who are different from you. Open to truths you don't yet understand. Why is this so critical? Because intolerance is a thief. It steals opportunities. It blinds you to possibilities. It keeps you small while convincing you you're right. The world doesn't reward the man who shuts his ears and hardens his heart. It rewards the one who can hear another's perspective, even when it stings. It rewards the one who can look past differences and find the common ground. It rewards the one who grows, instead of clinging to the familiar. And here's the irony. The more certain you are that you know everything, the less you're actually learning. The tighter you hold to your beliefs, the harder it becomes to see when they're wrong. You want to rise? You want to lead? Then you must learn to stand among people who don't think like you and still see their value. Tolerance does not mean you agree with everything. It does not mean you abandon your standards or convictions. It means you leave space for understanding before you judge. It means you recognize that no single mind, not even yours, has a monopoly on truth. Think about it. Every major breakthrough in history came from an idea that, at first, sounded foolish, foreign, or impossible. The airplane, the electric light, the telephone. At first, these ideas were ridiculed until they changed the world. If those inventors had surrounded themselves only with people who thought exactly as they did, if they had rejected every voice that sounded different, they would have stopped at mediocrity. And so will you, if you allow intolerance to rule you. So, as we begin this exploration of tolerance, ask yourself, do you actually listen when others speak? Do you seek to understand, or simply wait to respond? Do you dismiss what you don't like, or do you investigate it with curiosity? Because greatness isn't built by echo chambers. It's built by minds courageous enough to stay open, even when everything inside them wants to shut down. That courage, that openness, is where your next level begins. Now let's take this even deeper, because tolerance isn't just about being polite. It's not about nodding and smiling while you silently judge. It's about expanding the limits of your mind. You see, intolerance is often rooted in fear. Fear that someone else's idea might shake yours. Fear that if you listen too closely, you'll have to question what you believe. Fear that if you open your door, you'll lose control of what comes in. But the opposite is true. The most powerful people in history were not those who closed themselves off from difference. They were those who sought it out. They welcomed debate. They entertained opposing ideas not to weaken their own convictions, but to strengthen them. Because you can't truly know what you believe until you've tested it against something that challenges it. When you cut yourself off from other perspectives, you stop growing. You trap yourself in a small circle of familiar voices, comfortable but stagnant. And nothing great grows in stagnant water. So how do you practice real tolerance? First, listen more than you speak. When someone disagrees with you, instead of planning your rebuttal while they're talking, really hear them. What are they trying to say? What experiences shaped their view? What truth might they see that you've missed? Second question, your own assumptions. Ask yourself, what if I'm wrong about this? What if there's a piece of the puzzle I don't yet see? What if their idea isn't a threat, but the missing key to solving my problem? When you approach life this way, you stop fearing difference and start learning from it. Third, surround yourself with diversity. Not just diversity of race, gender, or age, but diversity of thought. Invite people into your circle who see the world differently than you do. People who challenge you, who push you out of your comfort zone, who force you to think in ways you never would have on your own. Because the truth is, no one ever rose to greatness by talking only to people who agreed with them. It is the clash of perspectives, the friction between ideas, that sharpens you, like steel against stone. And here's what you'll find. The more you practice tolerance, the less threatened you'll feel by new ideas. The more confident you'll become in who you are, not because you were never challenged, but because you survived the challenge and grew from it. And people will feel that about you. They'll see that you're not quick to judge, not easy to offend, not fragile in your thinking. They'll trust you more. They'll follow you more. Because you've proven yourself to be a bigger person, one who leaves space for others to belong. That, my friend, is how you lead. That is how you rise. And that is why tolerance is not just a courtesy, it is a competitive advantage. Now, let's address something uncomfortable. Tolerance isn't always easy, because people aren't always easy. You're going to meet people who frustrate you, people who misunderstand you, people who outright insult you, people who stand against everything you believe in. And in those moments, your first instinct may be to shut down, to strike back, to walk away and build walls around your heart. But here's the truth. Walls don't protect you, they trap you. When you shut people out simply because they make you uncomfortable, you also shut out the growth, the wisdom, and the opportunities they carry. Remember this. The person who tests your patience the most may also teach you the most. The idea you resist the hardest may hold the breakthrough you've been chasing. Why? Because discomfort is the gateway to transformation. You cannot grow while clinging to what you already know. You cannot lead while ignoring the perspectives of those you lead. And you certainly cannot create anything great by isolating yourself from the world around you. So what do you do when someone offends you? You pause, you breathe, and you listen anyway. You don't have to agree. You don't have to approve. But you owe it to yourself to understand, because understanding is power. And ignorance, that's weakness disguised as confidence. Now here's another secret. Tolerance doesn't just expand your mind, it expands your influence. People are drawn to those who make space for them. They trust those who can hear them without judgment. They follow those who lead with openness, not arrogance. Why? Because true leaders make people feel seen. And you can't make someone feel seen if you're too busy proving you're right. So let me give you some practical habits to develop tolerance. When you hear an idea that challenges you, ask, what truth could this idea hold that I'm missing? When you meet someone completely different from you, ask, what can I learn from their story? When conflict arises, say, help me understand how you see this. These small questions unlock massive insights. They show people you're not just listening to reply, you're listening to grow. And in time, you'll notice something remarkable. The very people you once saw as enemies or problems become your allies, your teachers, even your champions. Because when you show tolerance, you create connection. When you create connection, you build trust. And when you build trust, you unlock doors no amount of talent or money could ever open. Here's the final point for this part. Tolerance is not weakness, it's strength under control. It takes no courage to dismiss what you don't like. It takes no wisdom to condemn what you don't understand. But to stand firm in who you are, while also making room for others to stand in who they are. That is the mark of greatness. So practice it daily. In your conversations, in your decisions, in your leadership. Because the more you master the art of tolerance, the more you'll realize it's not just about accepting others. It's about elevating yourself. Let's talk about one of the greatest misunderstandings about tolerance. That it somehow dilutes your standards. People fear that if they listen too much, accept too much, consider too many perspectives, they'll lose their edge, soften their convictions, or betray their principles. That fear is a lie. Tolerance doesn't weaken you, it sharpens you. Because a belief that can't stand up to scrutiny isn't a belief worth keeping. A value that collapses when challenged wasn't strong enough to guide you anyway. When you truly master tolerance, you don't absorb every idea that comes your way. You examine it. You weigh it. You let it test your current understanding. And then you either integrate it or strengthen your resolve against it. But in both cases, you come out stronger, more aware, more grounded. Think of it this way. If you only ever stand in the same room with the same people saying the same things, you're not growing, you're just echoing yourself. The man who's afraid to hear another viewpoint is really afraid of his own doubt. But when you train yourself to listen without defensiveness, to explore without losing yourself, you build a kind of mental resilience no one can shake. And that resilience attracts people to you. Why? Because everyone craves to be heard. Everyone wants to feel their perspective matters, even if you disagree with it. And when you can be the one in the room who listens without flinching, who asks good questions without sarcasm, who considers without condemning, you earn trust. And trust, my friend, is the foundation of influence. It's what makes people follow you even when they don't fully agree with you. It's what turns competitors into collaborators. It's what opens doors you didn't even know existed. Now, here's another benefit of tolerance that no one talks about. It makes you smarter. The mind that only feeds on its own ideas becomes malnourished. It loses agility. It becomes rigid and brittle and eventually breaks. But when you welcome challenges, when you entertain different philosophies, when you study ideas that feel foreign, you stretch your thinking. You connect dots others can't even see. And that creative flexibility, that's how innovation is born. It's how you spot opportunities others miss. It's how you stay ahead of the curve while others get left behind. So here's your challenge. The next time you encounter a person who sees the world differently, lean in. Instead of asking, how can I prove them wrong? Ask, what can I learn from them? Instead of thinking, we have nothing in common, think, what might we create together that neither of us could alone? That shift in thinking changes everything. Because tolerance isn't passive. It's not weakness. It's active curiosity. It's intentional humility. It's powerful confidence, the kind that doesn't need to shout to stand tall. And as you build this habit, you'll notice something. Your circle grows richer. Your mind grows sharper. And your life grows bigger, all because you chose to open the door instead of locking it shut. Let's go even deeper now, because tolerance is more than just a personal virtue. It's a strategic advantage. The most successful people, the most respected leaders, the most creative innovators, they all have one thing in common. They understand how to work with people who are nothing like them. Why? Because no one achieves greatness alone. And the bigger your dream, the more minds, hands, and hearts you'll need to bring it to life. But here's the problem. Most people only know how to work with copies of themselves. They only hire people who think like they do. They only build friendships with people who vote like they do, pray like they do, look like they do. And then they wonder why their results are so small. Sameness feels safe, but it also keeps you small. The real breakthroughs come when you welcome people with different experiences, different skills, different ideas, and you have the courage to weave them into something bigger. Think about a symphony. It doesn't move you because every musician plays the same note. It moves you because every instrument brings its own voice to the harmony. That's what tolerance does in your life. It helps you create a symphony instead of a single note. Now let me give you something practical. If you want to build a team, a company, a movement that lasts, you must lead with tolerance. That means creating an environment where people feel safe to contribute, where they're not punished for thinking differently, where disagreement isn't seen as disrespect, but as a way to sharpen the vision and improve the outcome. Because here's the secret most leaders miss. When people feel heard, they give you their best. When they know their perspective matters, they lean in. They take ownership. They stop just working for you and start working with you. And that's when magic happens. So ask yourself, do people feel they can disagree with you without fear? Do they feel their ideas are welcomed, even if they're unconventional? Do you create space for voices that are quieter, but just as valuable? If not, start now, because nothing kills potential faster than a leader who can't handle difference. And nothing unlocks it faster than a leader who knows how to channel it. One more thing. Tolerance also teaches you how to handle criticism. You see, when you practice tolerance outwardly, you also develop it inwardly. You stop crumbling at the first sign of pushback. You stop taking feedback as an attack. Instead, you listen. You learn. You grow. That's the quiet strength of tolerance. It not only helps you work better with others, it helps you work better with yourself. So as you move forward, remember, your ability to embrace what's different isn't just a kindness. It's a superpower, and the more you exercise it, the more unstoppable you become. Now, let me tell you something very few people ever realize. Tolerance isn't just about other people, it's also about yourself. That's right. The way you treat others is often just a reflection of how you treat yourself. When you are harsh with yourself, when you're impatient with your own progress, when you punish yourself for every mistake, you project that same intolerance outward. But when you start to accept that you are a work in progress, when you learn to forgive your own missteps, to appreciate your own uniqueness, you suddenly find it easier to do the same for others. That's why the first step toward mastering tolerance is often internal. Ask yourself, can I sit with my own flaws without shame? Can I allow myself to grow at my own pace? Can I embrace the fact that I don't have all the answers yet? Because here's the truth. You will never be perfect, and neither will anyone else. But perfection was never the goal. The goal is progress. The goal is growth. The goal is contribution. And none of those are possible if you demand flawlessness from yourself or from others. Here's another lesson. When you allow yourself to evolve, you also create space for others to evolve. You stop freezing people in the version of themselves they used to be. You stop holding them hostage to one bad day, one bad choice, one bad season. You let them surprise you. You let them change. And that generosity, that willingness to believe in people, has a way of bringing out the best in them. So don't underestimate the power of grace. It's not weakness. It's wisdom. It's knowing that no one blooms in an atmosphere of constant judgment. Not even you. Here's a story to illustrate this. I once spoke with a man who had built a massive company from nothing. When I asked him his secret, he didn't say hard work or strategy or luck. He said, I learned how to give people room to grow, including myself. I stopped expecting perfection and started expecting progress. That's when everything changed. And isn't that the truth? When you practice tolerance inwardly, you free yourself from the chains of self-hatred and doubt. When you practice it outwardly, you free others to rise beyond what they thought possible. Tolerance creates an environment within and without, where greatness has a chance to take root. So the next time you feel tempted to judge too quickly, pause. The next time you feel impatient with your own journey, breathe. The next time you see someone stumble, remember how many times you've stumbled too. That is the quiet strength of tolerance. It does not lower standards, it raises humanity. And in raising humanity, it raises you. Now let me share something vital, a truth that most people overlook. Tolerance is not passive, it's active. You see, many assume tolerance means sitting quietly, biting your tongue, and letting anything slide just to avoid conflict. That is not tolerance. That is avoidance. And avoidance builds nothing. True tolerance requires strength. It requires you to stand in the middle of disagreement, to face people and ideas that oppose you, and yet refuse to lose your composure. It's easy to tolerate what feels comfortable. It's easy to accept people who already agree with you. But the real test and the real reward comes when you remain open while holding firm to your principles. You might wonder, how do you balance openness with conviction? How do you hear others without abandoning yourself? Here's how. You recognize that understanding someone else does not mean surrendering your truth. When you listen to someone, you're not agreeing. You're gathering information. You're building perspective. You're demonstrating confidence so strong that you don't fear being challenged, because confidence and tolerance are sisters. One cannot truly exist without the other. Insecure people feel threatened by difference. Secure people invite it. Insecure people shout to drown out other voices. Secure people listen, knowing their voice remains intact. So start practicing active tolerance. Step into conversations where you might not have the upper hand. Ask questions even when you fear the answers might unsettle you. Let people finish their thoughts even when you disagree. Respond with outrage even when they provoke you. Because the more you do this, the more influence you gain. You'll find people open up to you. They trust you because you've shown you can hold space for them without condemnation. They respect you because you respect yourself enough not to panic in the face of difference. And you'll discover something else too. Sometimes the very people you thought were against you are the ones who hold the key to your next opportunity. Life has a way of hiding its treasures inside unexpected people, unexpected ideas, unexpected conversations. But you only uncover those treasures when you stay present, when you lean in, when you resist the urge to shut down or push away. That's why I say tolerance is not passive. It is not weakness. It is engagement with courage. It means you believe in your ability to grow so deeply that you allow the world to challenge you and still remain whole. And the more you practice this, the more powerful you become. Because now you're not just moving through the world. You're learning from it, shaping it, and letting it shape you into someone truly extraordinary. Now let's explore one of the most powerful gifts of tolerance: innovation. Think about it. Every breakthrough you admire was born from someone willing to consider an idea others ignored. Every invention that changed the world started as a thought that seemed strange, even threatening, at first. That's because innovation lives at the edge of comfort. And tolerance is what allows you to stand at that edge without retreating. When you refuse to listen to ideas that challenge you, you shut the door on creativity. You close yourself off from the very spark that could set your vision aflame. But when you remain open, when you allow conflicting thoughts to sit at your table, you create a mental environment where new solutions can emerge. That is why the most progressive leaders, the greatest thinkers, are not the most rigid, they're the most receptive. They don't just tolerate differences, they welcome them. They don't fear the unknown, they study it. They don't reject what's uncomfortable, they mine it for gold. Let me give you an example. A man who only surrounds himself with people who agree with him will always believe he's right, even when he's dead wrong. And eventually, his ignorance will catch up to him. But the leader who invites dissent, who asks hard questions, who listens to critics and challengers, he may feel discomfort today, but tomorrow he builds something no one thought possible. You see, tolerance isn't just about relationships. It's about results. It's about being wise enough to know that no single perspective is complete, that no single person has all the answers, including you. So, how do you cultivate this kind of creative tolerance? First, stop labeling ideas as bad too quickly. When you hear something you don't like, pause. Ask yourself, what part of this could be useful? What problem might this solve that I haven't seen yet? Second, seek out voices you don't usually hear. Read books by people who disagree with you. Sit in rooms where you're the minority opinion. Learn from industries, cultures, and disciplines far from your own. Third, embrace discomfort as a signal, not a stop sign. That uneasy feeling in your gut, that's where growth begins. That's where the magic happens. Because the truth is, comfort is where ideas go to die. But tolerance, active, intentional, courageous tolerance, is where ideas are born. And when you make this your habit, you'll discover possibilities no one else could see. You'll unlock creativity others thought impossible. You'll achieve results others only dream about. Not because you knew it all from the start, but because you were humble enough to listen, brave enough to consider, and strong enough to grow. That, my friend, is the quiet power of tolerance at work. Now let's talk about the ultimate test of tolerance and the greatest reward it brings. The test comes when the stakes are high. When emotions are running hot, when someone challenges you not just with ideas, but with anger, disrespect, or outright hostility. Because it's easy to be tolerant when the room is calm, when everyone's polite and agreeable. But that's not when your character is revealed. Your true strength shows when you're under fire. And you still choose to listen, to breathe, to stand tall without lashing out. That is the highest form of self-mastery. It's the ability to see that someone else's behavior does not have to dictate your own. It's understanding that just because they lose their temper doesn't mean you need to lose your dignity. This is what separates leaders from followers, builders from breakers, masters from amateurs. And here's the reward. When you develop that level of tolerance, you become unshakable. People around you notice. They feel safer. They trust you more. They follow your lead because you have proven that you can carry yourself and others through chaos. Now, let me tell you another truth. Tolerance doesn't just strengthen relationships with others, it strengthens your relationship with your own future. Why? Because the more tolerant you become, the more opportunities you see. You stop dismissing people because they don't fit your image of ideal. You stop rejecting ideas because they're uncomfortable. You stop shutting doors that were meant to open. Instead, you start seeing value where others see threat. You find allies where others see enemies. You discover possibilities where others see problems. That's how great fortunes are built. That's how world-changing movements are started. Not by the intolerant shouting in the corners of their echo chambers, but by those willing to step into the noise and find the harmony within it. So, as we near the close of this lesson, ask yourself, who have you been quick to dismiss? What ideas have you refused to even consider? What doors have you closed because you thought you already knew? Because the answers you're looking for may already be right in front of you, just dressed in a form you've been unwilling to tolerate. The greatest growth always comes from the place you least expect it, but you'll never see it if you're not willing to look. And when you do look, when you finally let yourself lean into difference instead of running from it, you'll discover something profound. You're not just tolerating others, you're expanding yourself. You're becoming the kind of person who can walk into any room, with any crowd, under any pressure, and remain calm, clear, and in command. That is the quiet power of tolerance, and it is yours to claim. And now we arrive at the final truth of tolerance, the reason it matters more than most people ever realize. Tolerance is not just about how you treat others. It's not just about creating harmony in your relationships or teams. It's about building a legacy. Because when your time on this earth is done, people won't remember how much money you made. They won't care how many arguments you won, or how many people you managed to silence. They'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if you made space for them to be heard, to grow, to belong. And that is what true influence is made of. You see, the intolerant person leaves behind nothing but division. They burn bridges faster than they can build them. They repel opportunity without even knowing it. And they spend their lives wondering why the world feels so small. But the person who masters tolerance, they leave behind a trail of trust. They inspire others to rise higher. They create movements, not just moments. So let me leave you with this challenge. Make it your habit to look for what's good in others before you look for what's wrong. Make it your mission to seek understanding before passing judgment. Make it your legacy to create spaces in your home, in your work, in your life, where people feel safe to bring their whole selves. When you do this, you'll not only grow richer in mind and spirit, you'll also grow stronger in influence and achievement. Because tolerance, at its core, isn't about lowering your standards. It's about raising your humanity. It's the mark of a mind that is confident enough to stand firm and open enough to learn. It's the signature of a leader who knows that success is not about domination, but about collaboration. It's the quiet force that turns strangers into allies, opponents into partners, and moments of conflict into opportunities for growth. So, as you move forward from this lesson, carry this thought with you. Every person you meet knows something you don't. Every idea you encounter carries a seed you haven't planted yet. Every difference you fear may hold the key to your next level, but you'll never find it unless you're willing to look, to listen, to tolerate. So stand tall, stay open, and keep growing. Because in the end, it's not just what you build that defines you, it's who you become in the process. And tolerance, more than anything else, ensures that who you become is worthy of the success you seek.